everyone. Thank you for coming. So today's spotlight slash talk will be about content marketing for creatives. And I wanted to do it about that because I get a lot of questions about it and I rely on it heavily to market myself as a freelancer. And I was able to transition from working full-time into freelance in part thanks to these kind of to content, to being able to market myself on social media. Just a quick disclaimer, I don't come from a marketing background. I come from a design and an art background. So all of the tips I'm giving, they come from my experience. So none of it's obviously, I'm not like, this isn't all there is, but it's what worked for me. So I wanted to share it with everyone in case it resonates with anyone could possibly benefit from it. So quick introduction. If you're not familiar with me or my work, my name is Nora Zeid. Also, it's Nora Zeid on social media. I'm an illustrator and visual artist based in Dubai, from Cairo. For my background, I studied visual communication with a minor in illustration. I worked at an agency for 3 years where I was basically a graphic designer by day and then illustrating by night until I was able to go independent full-time. And like I said, the main reason I'm putting this together is because I realized that by marketing yourself efficiently on social media, you could really reach a lot of people and you could do more, work. In terms of my work, there are 2 parts to my work. First part is the visual arts practice, mostly my urban illustrations of Cairo. So that's more of my visual arts practice where I illustrate my hometown of Cairo and hopefully will expand to other cities and just highlight aspects of our heritage that might be endangered. And then there's also the commercial side of my practice where I've worked on different projects such as this one. And additionally, also I sometimes work in color, like this illustration I did for Big House for a lo-fi hip hop cover. So that's kind of the gist of what I do. And that's where my graphic design background comes in, and can always adapt my different illustrations to different platforms, to different depending on the client's needs, and also on my needs, like we're gonna see today. And yeah, lastly, I also create illustrations just for the fun of it. And like these 2 pieces I created last year, one to commemorate Samir Ghanem and the Am Bernie GIF that went viral when I had COVID last year.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's animated too, I can show it to you later.
Oh my God.
So why is this important? There's this thing in psychology called the mere exposure effect, which is a phenomenon by which people tend to develop preference for things that they are more familiar to than other things. And that's why I think marketing yourself on social media is great, because you basically introduce people to your work, you interact with those people who enjoy it, and you provide people with access to you as well. So you're not like this abstract person that's far away, but you're there and they could reach you. And is it true that social media and marketing yourself on media platform is the constant pressure to post? Yes. There's also the tendency to compare ourselves. Yes. And there's always this discussion that happens. They're like, oh, everyone on social media is just projecting success. It's all performative. Yes. But at the end of the day, it's a platform that's there. It's a tool, and adapting to platforms is a necessity. And it always has been with the advent of technology. When radio was invented, businesses and individuals had to adapt to that, and then television, and then the internet, and then social media. And so adapting is very important, and these are just new tools for us to tell stories. So even though the negatives and the challenges are there, like recognizing how powerful of a tool it is also really important. So here's one approach. It's not the approach, but there are a few things that worked for me, and I thought I would share them with you guys in case anyone could benefit from it. So the first thing is understanding your identity, aka building a brand, but like understanding your identity sounds more poetic.
Yeah.
And a lot of I know some creatives friends of mine who aren't big on like using marketing terms when talking about the arts. So it's understanding your identity. Who are you? What do you do? What's your message, and who do you want it to reach? So these seem like such obvious questions, but it's super important to kind of take a step back and reflect, like, who am I? my name's Nora, I'm an illustrator, I like to illustrate. And so that's one pillar of how I'm going to project my presence on social media. What do I do? I'm an illustrator. Beyond that, what do I also do? I really love research. I love visual design. I love attending exhibits, like live music events. Like my whole life kind of revolves around the arts. And so that's also reflected in how I present myself. What's my message? I'm very passionate about heritage conservation and representation of our heritage, built heritage, especially beyond just our monuments, also like regular neighborhoods in pop culture and in media. So I represent these different spaces myself in my work. And so that's part of my message. Who do I want to reach? Just, I guess, like-minded people who might enjoy the kind of work that I produce. And also on a more commercial side, I want to be able to reach potential clients. And so kind of having these pillars when starting to present yourself is very important, because you can always go back to them when you feel like it gets a bit old. And also, what are you like as a person? People buy from people. So show the people that you want to reach a glimpse of who you are. I think that's very important. I remember when Amal Beatty, the founder of Tiny Toaster, gave her talk here, she was constantly like saying how important it is to tell stories through brands. And so it's the same thing here. You need to tell stories. You need to connect with people, because again, people buy from people, which is why brands like spend so much time getting brand ambassadors and hiring these celebrities for their campaigns, and because we connect with people at the end of the day. And so that's very important. Whether you just want to share a piece of work for the sake of arts, or whether you're sharing a piece of work because you want to generate an income and eventually build a business out of your practice. So a few artists that I personally really like that I've seen that do this. Pascal Campion, the French artist, is an example of that. He has a very strong grip on who he is as an artist, and it reflects in his work. So when it comes to what his message is, he's always showing moments of intimacy, moments of peace. He's depicting these city landscapes or rural landscapes with individual people in them. And there's always a lot of there's a lot of representation of emotion in his work. And that's consistent throughout his work, whether he's making webcomics or he's creating artworks for the cover of the New York Times. And in terms of style, he's also very consistent as an artist. So when defining who we are, also, it's like having a style is one, like producing work is one thing. Not all the work I produce goes into on the media, but having a consistent style is also great. So for example, he has this kind of digital impressionist style, again, which conveys his message really well. Another example is Rama Douaji. She hasn't been very active recently, but her work is also very consistent. Her messaging is very consistent. Like lots of the topics she tackles, a lot of them relate to social justice, women's rights. She challenges beauty standards in a lot of her works, and that's very consistent in how she represents women in her works, even if the work is gearing towards like just it's commercial work, but still you see these themes consistently represented in her work. And obviously stylistically, she's very consistent. You see always the same textures, strong contrast. Her work is gorgeous. Nouri Flehan is also a wonderful example of that. Similar themes, similar messages, a very different approach, very colorful, very textured. And whether it's commercial work or work she's doing because for the sake of it, again, you see this consistency. She has a strong grip on who she is as an artist and how she presents herself. And she was one of my biggest inspirations when I was looking into how to market myself as an artist, because she's very, very consistent and she does it really well. And Pablo Rocha is another example from the West. He creates these visual puns, these videos. So on the right, you have a video he did for Hermes, where he had someone behind the laptop and he was like brushing the hair of the horse. So again, it's very consistent. And even when you see his captions, like all of these artists I'm mentioning here, their captions, their messaging, the way they present the work is consistent. So Pablo Rocha, because they're all visual puns, you see the captions are really short. He lets the work speak for itself. Pascal Campion might have short captions for artworks like these, but then in the comics, he goes into topics of self-worth, of mental health when it comes to art, of his relationship with his family. So also it's interesting to see how these different artists, not just how consistent they are and how they market themselves, but also how they write their copy and their posts and so on, because they're really consistent. So at the end of the day, you're really just building a brand for yourself. And it's not like you have brand guidelines with like what font and whatnot, but just it helps you with your decision making because you're not floundering every time you're making a post or you're sharing something, because you've got these kind of loose guidelines in your heads that help you out. And it also helps your target audience recognize your work. At the end of the day, you want to help people recognize your work. So when they think illustration, I want them to think of me. Maybe I want them, Sara Ladele would want her, like the artist is doing, you guys can't see the mural, but there's this gorgeous mural here and Sara did it. And like her work is also very consistent. So when people would think, oh, mural or something architectural or technical, they think, oh, Sara, because she has an architecture background, because she's studying in London, because she's this and that. And so you're helping your audience recognize you and your work, which makes it easier to build a relationship with your audience and with clients also. It helps them trust you more because they know you in a way. Well, obviously they don't know you, but they've come across you before. Yeah. So it brings me to my next point, creating and diversifying content. I know that a lot of artists and creative hate the word content. I'm not a big fan of it myself, but at the end of the day, it's important to use the word because when I create an artwork or an art piece that's going to be exhibited in a gallery, it's not the same, it doesn't have the same value of the version of it I'm posting on Instagram. So categorizing it as content, I think, is very important. It's important not to lose sight of what matters, but keeping that reality. There we go. Remember that like social media platforms are free. It's because we're the product. Our attention is the product, and like it's a bit cynical, but it's very true. And it's important to keep in mind because we can't. There we go. We can't lose sight of what matters and what we want to do and what we want to achieve. But keeping that reality in mind helps us make decisions about how we share our work. So which is why consistency is key. So you're not just posting for the sake of posting. It's also thinking of why you're posting and how to best gear your how to best prepare your message, because you've got a message, you've got something you want to deliver to your audience. Now, how can I best wrap this up in a way that's algorithm friendly, that's going to reach my audience, that's going to be easily digestible by them as well? So I could have a message and I could create a very powerful illustration with a poignant caption, and that could reach more people than if I wrote an essay about something. It's both the same story. I'm telling the same story, but in different ways. And the first way is better geared for the platform I'm posting it on. And if I want to write the essay, I could write it and just link it and put it elsewhere. So more people are more interested. So you can reel them in. They don't scroll away. Then they can go check out the thing you want them to check out. Anyway, so different ways to do that. So because social media requires us to constantly be posting, and I'm mainly talking on about Instagram here because it's the platform I rely on the most. I rely on stories very often to be able to keep interacting with my audience, keep sharing bits and pieces of my process without, it's like you're not investing as much effort, but you're still constantly posting. And that allows me to stay active while I'm still preparing the work that I'm working on. So in my head, I have like a category of different stories I post. There's like the mundane moments of day to day. I'm into food and I'm into arts and culture. So whenever I'm just enjoying something, whether it's food or arts and culture related, I just snap 2 pictures, and when I go home, I post them. I make sure to look up, if it's a restaurant, I look up the founder or the restaurant itself, their Instagram, I tag them, and maybe make like a quick 10-minute sketch about it. It's on brand, but it's relatable. And while you're at it, you might as well support the local business you really like. So there's no harm in that. And so this is quinoa at the ramen place in Onyx Towers in the Greens. It's fantastic. I'm obsessed with them.
It's a great story.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. I've told it to everyone I know. It's so.
She still have like a supper club, right? And then
She had a supper club, and it was insane because you would book through Instagram, and you had to send your name like at 11 a.m. exactly. If you're late 2 minutes, you miss it. I tried twice and I finally made it. It's insane. And she opened a restaurant. Now she's opening another branch in London.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Her story is amazing, and she's an amazing person. Actually, I learned something from her because I asked her, like, how do you keep doing it without getting sick of it? Because it's easy to get burned out when you do what you love so much. And I'm worried that would happen with illustration. she told me this advice. I'm gonna share, I guess, because it applies to us as well. It's just take a break when you really enjoy it. Like if you're really having fun with what you're doing, take a break, because then and do something else, because then you want to go back to it. It's brilliant. She's amazing. I really admire her. Her name's Niha, by the way. It's like story of food on Instagram. Niha. Neha. No.
Making sense. Sorry about that.
A second thing is also sharing your process and behind the scenes. Again, you could just, so I was here on a photo walk in Heliopolis a year ago, and I put this in my highlights. I just snapped a few pictures, tagged the locations, and just share a snippet of your process with the people with the people who are supporting you and enjoying your work. It's also really great. And that's one thing I actually really like about social media, is that aspects of it, like stories, are very casual. They disappear in 24 hours, so you can test out ideas using that tool. So posting an illustration of this ramen, I can test out the reaction of people viewing it. Are they gonna like it? Are they gonna reply? Is someone gonna be like, oh, I want this for my business? It's happened before. So it's a good way to test things out as well. Engage with your audience. So around the 9K, 10K follower mark, I start getting a lot of DMs with questions. So I do these Q&As sometimes on the stories, and it's a good way to engage with your audience, share knowledge, and also it's really wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity to just use the tools that Instagram's providing, or like whatever platform you're using is providing, whether it's polls on Twitter, or like whatever new tool is up on TikTok. I don't use that platform often enough, because they usually boost the visibility of things that use their tools.
Yeah.
And reoccurrences, so series. So on stories, I have a series of illustrations that I create every day. Every other day, I draw my outfit, and then I post a picture of it.
I've seen these. They're so nice.
Thank you.
I see them on Instagram. I'm like, oh, look what you dressed like. That's what your trick choice was, yeah.
So these are really cool because, first of all, for me, it's a quick sketch, so it's good practice. And also it takes me 10-15 minutes. I post it, I've got something up there, I can go back to work without worrying about people forgetting about me, because I get most of my clients through social media. So they're really, really exciting to work on. And one of the cool things is like the illustration is on brand because it's an illustration in my style on my account. And then I post a picture because photographs are more relatable. And well, we all know that pictures of ourselves and selfies just do well with the algorithm, because, well, people connect to people, human beings. So faces do well. Thank you.
See, they all know.
And like one last thing, it's always a good idea to keep track of how the algorithm is shifting. Like 2-3 years ago, when you posted dozens and dozens of stories, it was a good thing. Now the way it works, or the way I think it works from what I've seen, is that if people move away from your story, from the second or third story, then the number of views decline.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So we're the currency, right? Our attention is the currency. So if you're losing, if people's attention is waning while watching your stories, then Instagram's not going to boost your content. So I post one story, and then I wait a few minutes and I post another one. Yeah. And if I have too many stories, I take a break. Yeah, except if they're like following a logic. So if like a few weeks ago, there was something happening in Cairo, like some issues with heritage conservation, and people getting evicted. So I was posting about it, and like about the importance about like really thinking before we post about new developments. And so I posted like a series of 16 stories, but people were reading it, so they were sticking to it, if that makes sense. So again, it's all about retaining people's attention.
Where is most of
Yeah, sure.
where's most of your audience based on your metrics dashboard? Where do you analyze that most of your audience is based on?
So if you set up your Instagram account as a business account, you can check your insights. And so in my case, I've got 20, 25, 20, 29% of my audience is in Egypt, Cairo, and I've got like 20% in Dubai, and the rest is all over. Some in Sudan, some in United States, some in Europe. It really always happens due to projects. Like I worked on 2 album covers for Sudanese rappers, and so I've got a tiny audience there. It's pretty cool, yeah. And like I'm grateful that I'm happy that I get to show my work to so many people. So, which is why I'm doing this. Posts. So in my mind, again, when you're creating content to market yourself, it's like it's a mix between spontaneous and planned. There's good to leave room for like spontaneous things. This Bernie meme was trending. I had COVID, so I was on leave from work. I was working full time at the time. And I saw this, I'm like, what does look, he kind of looks like he's sitting at an ahwa in Cairo and he's just smoking his shisha. And so I did it and I said it to my friend May and she's like, oh, this, it looks, you could make his leg shake. And so I made his leg shake and I added some music. And so it's spontaneous. And when creating things like this, it's good to keep in mind, like, again, what's your goal? You're not just creating for the sake of creating. So my goal is just to create this witty piece because I thought of it. I'm like, so funny, I want to do it. But also I need it to be out now. So yeah, and but I want it also to be impactful. So I added music and I added the sounds of a coffee shop, of an ahwa. I can pull it up actually. Because it's a good example of spontaneous. I wish I could do more of these. Wait. There we go. So I'll go on Zoom. I need to desktop.
You have it already?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna put. So the Zoom people.
Great job.
Nora, you might have to share sound for that.
So share sounds
So
with the TV or the wait.
yeah, so stop share and then share again.
Wait.
Oh, here. Oh, okay.
Oh, or that. Yeah. Wait. Let's see if it works. Okay. There we go. Oh yeah. I posted this. I went to bed and I woke up. It was like everywhere. And some shisha shop in Canada had it on their Instagram. I was like, "What's happening?" Yeah, I swear to God. So the point is, like, I could have gone and animated the bubbles and drew a guy walking in the back with a tea tray. But the thing is, the point is not that. I just want to convey the energy of a coffee shop. So I use sounds. I Googled them. I downloaded them like royalty-free audio, and I just edited it all in. So it's spontaneous and you want it out quick, and what's the best way to do that? It's really some problem solving, and it's really fun. And then obviously there's planned, like I was selling postcards at Cocoa Point, so I went to the shop and I printed the postcards and I laid them out and I took a picture and I edited it and I timed it and I posted it. It's like more, this is like more planned. So having a mix of like organic, spontaneous moments and planned content is quite important. Social media geared versus adapted. So I don't know, is that how geared is spelled? It's okay. Thank God I'm not a copywriter. So the one on the left was the Cairo houseboats were, well, they're gone now, unfortunately, but they were endangered by being removed because there's a new law that you can only have commercial houseboats on the Nile. So these residential houseboats were being removed, and they're a huge part of our heritage. So I created this illustration. Yeah, they're beautiful. Like there's a Abdul Halim movie where he sings, he's in a boat and he goes and he sings to his beloved and she lives in one of these boats.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they're a huge part of our heritage and they're so important because they're adapted to the context that they're in, which I think is super important to maintain these structures because it's a houseboat. It's built on the Nile because it's in the Nile. There's a river there, so there's houseboats. So removing them, I feel is I don't know, but that's just that's a different topic. But the point is, I was very passionate about it, so I created the square. It's a square illustration, so social media geared, has a frame. So I want to attract people's attention to the center. It's black and white, and there's like red. So the composition is very centered. Versus like adapted, this is the one panel from an exhibited story I had at Tashkil. The exhibit was called Cairo Illustrated Stories from Heliopolis. And so I picked the most detailed and elaborate panels. I resized the ones that could be resized as well, because not all of them could. And I resized it to the social media size. The maximum vertical size is 1350 by 1080 pixels, or at least that's the aspect ratio. So like I had to adapt the content to social media. I posted another few illustration. I made a carousel post because again, I want to retain people's attention. So I want them to swipe through, spend more time on the post. So then algorithm boosts it. So this is like more adapted. I didn't create it for the platform. It's like I have this body of work. I need to market it on social media. How am I going to do that? And lastly, announcements. So as an artist, whenever you have an exhibit, whenever you take part of an event, whenever you're published, whenever someone writes an article about you, it's good to commemorate these things on your platform. In this case, it's Instagram, but also on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on whatever platforms you're using. So for example, Kairos, which is a strong. Oh yeah, community Slack. I'm terrible on Slack. I need to get better. Yeah. So the Kairos article, for example, Kairos is pretty big in Cairo. So having an article on there is a good achievement. And a lot of people are going to work with you because they like your work, but let's face it, a lot of brands are going to hire artists because, oh, this artist has been featured here and here and here, and they've worked with this brand, and so we want to work with him. And so it's good to have these reminders on your feed or on your wherever the feed is that, oh, hey, I've been featured here and there, because it gives credibility in more commercial circles. And also events. So there was a book signing for Perniche, and I kind of wanted to, I announced for the event, first thing I did. And then during the event, you're posting and you're sharing stories and such. And then after the event, you're like, thanks everyone for coming. And so it's a good way to wrap your event up. And so these are kind of announcements. And the good thing is that they stay there. And if people scroll through to see what you've done as an artist, it's there, which is pretty cool. It's like a digital footprint. And then obviously video content is everything now. I am personally still adapting because I create static art mostly, which is difficult to adapt, but it's the gist of it seems to be that it needs to be original yet trending. So I'd go through reels, I'd scroll through whenever I see something an artist did with a decent audio, I like save it and I try to adapt it to my content. And it's either, again, similar to the post, you're either creating something new for the platform. So I have one where I animated my face. I didn't know how to put video in the presentation. So I'll just well, see, that's why it's important as well, because I usually just pull up my Instagram if I can't access my website. I want it, and I want you to be. So it's like, and then I took the same set of illustrations and I adapted.
Strategy. Find you save songs that are probably trending so that the algorithm should it up.
Yeah, I try. It doesn't always work. This song wasn't trending, the first one. I just had the idea and I needed the music. The second one, I saw the song trending and I'm like, I can adapt the existing content to it. Yeah. Alternatively, there's also just like existing illustrations of mine that I could make crop vertically. So the cool things is that reels reach an audience beyond your own, while posts reach my own audience. So the cool thing with these that I redid this similar thing several times. So here, yeah, with different illustrations. So it's the same idea. This one went crazy viral actually.
You're an artist.
No, yeah. So it works, I guess. But I'm still trying to get the hang of it because it changes a lot and it's new relatively. So these are video contents. Again, adapting something you already have versus trying something new for the platform specifically. So connecting and expanding. So it's good to always have a digital presence. So when it comes to networking, I like to go again. So part of my brand, who I am, is it's something that it's before I even start obviously posting, but you see what you like and you pick the parts that you feel fits within your brand and you amplify them. And so I go to a lot of art exhibits. So I went to Cairo Prince at Cairopolitan back in July. I took a few pictures while I was there. And then when I go home, I go online, I check the name of the artists, the name of the piece. You don't have to do that. I do that because I feel that social media robs people of credit, which is annoying. So I went in and I looked up the artists and tagged them and put the name of the art piece as well because it's important. But yeah, so you go there, you tag the people who are involved, you maybe share a few moments. A young artist went in and wrote my name with a calligraphy pen on a piece of paper and gave it to me. So I went in, post tagged it. So you're creating a story for people to follow. You're helping promote emerging artists. And also you're making it known that you are part of this community of people as well, and you're interacting with them. Support and tag, it's a bit silly, but it's true. So I went to this event, I bought the tote bag, and I incorporated in the next thing where I usually draw my outfits. So I bought the tote bag and I tagged them. And two of my friends, surely enough, bought the tote bag later. So it's cool because you're supporting local brands, you're engaging with your community, but at the same time, you're also just like, you're staying active and it's all under the umbrella of your brand, which is really great. So popping up on someone's radar is the first step in connecting with them and the first step in becoming part of a network of people. So sometimes when people think about networking, they think you have to walk up to someone and be like, hey, here's my portfolio and my business card and my website. Please hire me, please, please, please. That's not, I mean, you could always do that, but you could always just, the first time when I worked with Big Hass, the radio presenter and MC, he saw me at an event and I usually take my sketchbook and I like sketching. And so he saw me at an event once, twice, three times. The fourth time he came up and talked to me. He's like, you're always here. I'm like, yeah, I like live music. And he's like, oh, you draw? And so he commissioned me and then it never went through. And then he commissioned me a second time. It was like a portrait and didn't work out. And then the third time it worked out. And we've been working together since 2019 now. I've done like 9 or 10 covers for him. So sometimes it's just being part of a community. You want to ask a question? No?
When you say community, you just said it's time.
Yeah. So it's promoting yourself, but it's also promoting the people around you. And I feel like we rise together. And it was never intentionally to promote my brand or anything, but I just realized that like me and my friends were supporting each other since we were in college. And then now all of us, it's 5 years. When did I graduate? 4 years, 5 years. Yeah, 25. So yeah, it's been 4 years and now all of us, some of us work at companies, some of us have our own businesses, some of us are freelancing like myself, some of us are working more in academia, and all of us are supporting each other and giving each other opportunities. So it's very important to be part of a network, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. So yeah, and make sure that if people look you up, be on the platform of choice they find you. So put yourself in the place of a potential client collaborator when you're marketing yourself. And I'm thinking, okay, if someone sees my art on Instagram, they think I'm cool, maybe they have a taco restaurant and they want me to illustrate tacos for their menus. They want to go in and see. Yeah, I guess it's just the first thing that came to mind. I love food, so I love illustrating food as well. So they go and check what my background is. They go on LinkedIn. So I need to make sure my LinkedIn's updated. That I make sure that it's clear that I worked at an agency, because it had a big role in forming who I am as an illustrator today. And how I manage my projects as well. I need to have a website, just in case they decide to click on my website from Instagram, or some clients and some people who are a bit old school as well, from people who are Gen X, they'd ask for your website. They wouldn't ask for your social media. So it's good to have a website. You don't have to. I know illustrators who are doing really well and they don't have a website, but it helps. Basically, just put yourself in their place. If they look you up, what will they find? And yeah, I wanted to leave room for questions in case anybody had, but this is like a few tips and tricks on content marketing for artists, notably on social media.
The best. I learned a lot. Well, Yeah, okay.
And you're an amazing presenter.
Yeah,
I
you're
hope
really
so.
good.
I started at first actually have social anxiety, but I'm like when it's something you're passionate about, it just flows.
No, it's so clear and like insightful and great. With a deep person.
Thank you.
I have
Yes.
about like you feel like the platform will allow you to evolve. Like what you do right now, do you like do you feel like you don't have room to evolve or like be a different version of Nora Zeid because like you've developed this like really strong brand identity? Or I feel a lot of artists, like I've heard a podcast recently about the subject, so like I'm just curious about your take.
Sometimes yes,
Yeah.
because the part of my practice that's caught on is the black and white illustrations that I do with
Yeah.
Cairo, which is great because I'm so passionate about them. But then people ask me, "You don't use color?" Like,
Yeah.
no, I use color all the time, and a lot of my commercial work has color. It's just when I illustrate in color, and sometimes for some commercial clients, they have certain vision, they need something specific, so I change my style to adapt to it,
Mhm.
which I'm comfortable doing, because I view my practice as I'm problem solving for them when it's
Yeah.
commercial. And that stuff doesn't fit on my feed. It doesn't visually, thematically, it's not consistent. So I don't post it. I just put it on my website. But sometimes it's limiting because people come and ask, you don't know how to use color.
Yeah.
So so it can be
Yeah,
limiting.
exactly.
It can be limiting, but sometimes it's the opposite is challenging
Mhm.
because you need to get people's attention in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm Bernie, I might have not created something like this if not for a platform like Instagram. So, but yeah, it can be limiting. One of my friends had suggested that what if you just create something consistent like the outfit of the day, but for experimenting. So somehow brand this kind of haphazardous content you want to create just to experiment. So that's also an option. But yeah. So the way I've approached that issue of like my more popular content on social media and my more popular artworks are the black and white ones, is that I pepper the colorful stuff in the middle so it's still visually consistent. And the best examples like the Kerning Cultures cover I did for Swipe Left. Yeah. So that was a fun one. It was a colored one. It's there as an example, I guess. So I guess that answers your question. Yes.
So, I think sometimes like people who are building their own like Instagram brand can struggle with posting about their own lives and then posting the content. And as you mentioned in the beginning, like that content urge to always post content. How have you found ways? Do you still create art to talk about your day-to-day life? And the second question of that is like, do you have a Finsta?
Do I have a Finsta? Yeah, I have a Finsta.
So Finsta
with
is
like
a-
30 followers.
Yeah, so a Finsta is the solution.
Finsta is a good solution to like.
A Finsta is
I've never felt older.
a
Fake
Finsta.
Insta.
I learned this with Davina and Donna.
Yeah, she's like, you have a Finsta. I have a Finsta. You have a Finsta. And then a fake Insta. It's fun or fake?
It's both. I get
It's
to
fun
post my.
and fake.
It's
like personal versus your brand.
Yes. So yeah, so you have a Finsta. I have a
of course.
Finsta.
I
Who
need
else here
somewhere
has a
to post
Finsta?
all my stupid. I need somewhere to archive all the best
Memories.
stupidest reels.
I-
TikToks.
No, I use.
And it's a good place to keep track of friends as well, because like I follow my closest friends there, so they could text me there if they can't reach me on the other one. And what was the first question? It was about posting daily life.
Yeah, like if you want to post something fun, you don't do you not? Like that's not related to maybe your brand.
I do and I don't. I mean, like I said, so it's consistent, so I can actually do it consistently. It has to be related to my personal life to a certain degree. I don't post everything. That's not healthy. And I'm not constantly posting either, because when I'm at the concert, I want to enjoy the concert. So I just pull out my phone, I film 2 videos that are like 15 seconds. I put the phone back in the bag and then I post when I go home. Because you want to enjoy the moment as well. But so basically, if it falls under the category of things I have in my head, like music, art, culture, food, travel, I post it. If it doesn't, I didn't put it on my Finsta. On Twitter, my Twitter's unhinged, so I post it on Twitter. And if I don't have time to create illustrations, just photographs. So if I'm talking about Cairo, I've got my pictures from my phone and I post pictures of Cairo and I put the text on top. And I always use the same font on stories. The layout's generally the same-ish. You don't need to design templates and stuff. That stuff doesn't work because you want something organic and you want to use the visual language of the platform. So yeah, and sometimes it's enough to just have 2 or 3 pictures up there. Yeah.
How do you balance? Especially with today's world, there's a lot of like censorship. And being like this sort of, I feel like you talk about important things, especially when it comes to like Cairo and us kind of being all Arabs. We obviously have one agenda, which I'm not gonna have to refer to. But like, how do you go about that? Yeah, like, do you avoid posting about contents that may affect your Instagram, or do you go through it anyway?
It's very tricky. The issue with posting a lot about social justice is that I had a phase and then people started messaging me, asking me questions and referring other people to me like I'm an activist. I'm like, I don't have the answers to these questions. I'm not like, I have the knowledge, but then I don't have it's not what I do I don't have I don't have knowledge to answer about this. No, the purpose of this Instagram, the main purpose is to share my work and post about it. But then at the same time, you hold a responsibility if you have a large audience. And so it's very tricky. The language you use is crucial, I guess, because some language can get you in trouble and some language can get your message across delicately. And
Put a nice illustration with it.
yeah,
Like a mentor, advisor, someone who consults with?
yeah, I do. So I participated in the critical practice program at Tashkil in 2020-2021, and part of the program is you get to choose 1 or 2 mentors. So the 2 of the people I consider my mentors are Ghalia Sirkabi and Halal Aini, the professor the first one's a professor at AUC, the second one's a professor at AUS, and she also founded a studio with her friends and colleagues called Mobius. Yeah. So they guided me through the Cairo Illustrated Stories from Heliopolis process. They're very they always challenged me, which was great. So I go refer to them for advice from time to time still. Mohammed Shibani, the comic artist, he's brilliant. He's so talented and he gives very, very good feedback. It's just like ruthless to the point, fix this, work on this. This is your biggest challenge. And he does it in a very constructive and supportive way. So he's been great as well. Like he used to message me a few years back and when he saw my work, he's like, clean your line art. Your line art's scratchy, confidence strokes. And he said, he's my friend, obviously. So it comes across as like, okay, yeah, you're right. I know. He's like telling you the things that you need to do. He's not afraid to tell you what needs to be fixed. And I really respect him for that. And there's my professor in college as well, Philip Shield, who was like, had a huge hand in informing who I am today as an artist, to be honest.
Where did you go?
AUS.
Oh.
Yeah, I studied the graphic design at Viscom. So he was my illustration professor. So one of the advice he gave me, for example, that was super helpful. He's like, if you're good, you're going to give the client what they want. If you're really good, you're going to persuade the client that what you're doing is what's best for them. And I was like, oh, wow. So because I was very frustrated, I couldn't convince my professor with an idea, and so he was really, really helpful. And there are so many other people, but these are from the top of my head. Yes.
Almost like not too technical or specific, but basically like I was kind of curious. We have a bigger project, like as in like not necessarily scale wise, but like the amount of pieces you've done. How do you share them on Instagram without losing attention or like feeling like you overwhelmed your feed with it, if that kind of makes sense?
Losing attention or overwhelming my feed with it.
Like has it happened before that you've had a lot of experiences? Because that's something personally I struggle with. And you just feel like if you post too much of it, like how to do it, it just needs to be as like.
Well, I guess it depends on how people respond to the first few pieces and how you share it as well. So what do you do for context? Like illustration.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was curious.
So I could share this same piece in several ways. I could post the artwork and illustration. The black and white ones do well when I post them like that, but I could also post them as postcards, like hold the postcard in my hand, and the fact that there's my hand, it's a human element, so it's not bad to have. I could post like photograph the piece when it's framed on the wall. I could photograph the space that the piece is in. I could photograph my working space while I'm working on it, work in progress. So there are different ways to frame the same piece of work. And also again, it's not like I read this stuff down, but in your head, it's just like, okay, so this one did better than this one, that one performed better than this one. Maybe it's because of this, maybe it's because of that. If you're struggling with a certain platform, for example, when I'm still trying to figure out TikTok, but I go back, my brother is 14. I just show him the stuff. He's like, would you watch this? It's like, no, it's too slow. I'm like, okay. So if you struggle, it's good to show it to someone if you're not on social media a lot, it's good to show it to someone who is and be like, okay, would you actually look at this or would you scroll past it?
I think I was curious about Instagram. It feels like now that the app is just so overwhelmed, people just want to see reels.
Yeah, I'm still adapting to that. It's very challenging. The new updates.
How much does your time spend like focused on like your feeds and like creating, but also like looking at stats that are
Yeah, in part I have to admit it's because I spend way too much time on my phone, just like the rest of us. I'm not going to praise myself for that, but in part it is part of my work. Yeah, but like it's like learning how to look in a way. So when I'm looking at illustrations, for example, I'm enjoying the work, but I'm also looking, oh, I like the line art on this, I love the color on this. Oh, I love the photorealism in this piece. It's interesting how they use colors to convey this or that. So you're looking, but you're also thinking. So like whenever I see something performing well, I try to think, why is it performing well? So like when Nouri Flihan started trending and growing, for example, as an illustrator, I was like, I wonder what she's doing right, because she's doing something right. Her work's great, but like she's definitely doing something beyond just posting her work. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it's relatable work. It's always relevant to what's happening at the time. It's consistent visually, etc., etc., etc. And so you're scrolling, but you're also thinking, and that helps. And also, it's very hard, but it's also getting past the point of, oh, it's so toxic. Everything's changing, the algorithm. And so you need to get past the anger to be able to think of how to solve the issue. Because social media is not the most important thing, but it's my main way of marketing myself. So it needs to stay active, it needs to work. So once I'm done being angry about everything being video, I need to start thinking about, okay, how do I adapt my static content to to this platform that's all video now? So that's another thing as well. It's just like, yes, or not now.
Can I say something? We have chat meeting.
Yeah.
I think you're doing well, more than well, because I was in a meeting yesterday with completely random people, and a designer in Copenhagen is following her. Wow!
Oh my God, I'm so surprised.
She said, oh, introducing herself, and she said, Nora, I'm following you. I love your work. And I said, wow.
I was so flattered.
Doing good, girl.
I'm like, yes, represent Cairo. Thank you.
We have a question online from Funda. She's asking, do you find yourself producing work that would be more suitable to Instagram or social media?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's some of the work is gearing towards social media specifically. So if you look at a lot of the pieces I'm making, well, not all of them, but maybe like, so if you look at some of the stuff posted on Instagram, the fact that it's centered, the images are at the center, that's social media. You know, like when you study design school, at design school, they tell you have asymmetrical design. Not that asymmetrical designs won't work on social media, but like, you know, you're trying to experiment with type, you know, but with hierarchy. But, you know, when I'm trying to post something quick and it needs to get up there, if I'm responding, for example, something in the news, yeah, the type is front and center, in the middle, it's red. Maybe I hand draw it because it's texture, it's more organic. And so I trace the typeface. And so that way it's, yeah, it's more relatable. So in that way, yes. But then sometimes I'm creating work that's not for digital, it's not meant to be seen digitally. So when I was doing my exhibit with Tashkil, 90%, okay, not 90%, 70% of it didn't make it on social media because it's not meant to. It's a comic. So for context, that exhibit I did with Tashkil is a comic, it's a story. And the story is exhibited on these big red platforms. And there are these huge pages and they're vertical. they're not social media friendly at all, but their purpose was not social media. If I had done that comic to be posted in social media, I would have done it very differently. But then the nicest panels, I went in and I cropped, and then I prepared it to put it on social media because you want people to come to your exhibit. And if they don't come to your exhibit, you want people to be aware you have an exhibit so that hopefully they commission you for work. So the answer to that question is yes, but not purely, I guess. I'm still an artist and illustrator at the end of the day. The purpose is not to post on social media. The purpose is to be able to manage my social media account so I can keep doing what I want to do. If that makes sense. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nora.
Thank you. Thank you, Nora.
Nora.